Hello, I'm Wayne Hilborn, and I'm going to use logic and reasoning to explain to you why dying is very, very safe. Time as we know it in 2024, or most of us, is an illusion. Time is not real as most people think. Even Einstein taught that time travel was possible. There's two methods of time travel. You could go off at high speeds on a spaceship, close to speeds of light, and then come back to Earth years later, or you could hang out at the edge of a black hole. In both those instances, time would go slower for you than it would go for the people on Earth. We know this. And if you expand the math to your moment of now with someone across the galaxy, then if they're going away from you, like in a car or whatever their mode of transportation is, if they're going away from you, then they would affect their now would now become a thing of the past, of our now, because their timelines would be going at a different rate of speed. We would be going, the light would have to travel further. So they're now, because of the math of going across an entire galaxy, could be hundreds of years in the past. And if they're coming towards you, like in their car or whatever, then their now could proceed a couple hundred years in the future. This is the block universe. Time travel is taught in every university, and the smart people on the planet understand that time travel is a real theoretical thing. The block universe is Einstein's theory of relativity, the relativity of simultaneity. The block universe is taught by Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's taught everywhere. It's accepted physics. So the smart people know that time travel is possible. Now, I'm going to show a brief clip of John Archibald Wheeler.
Why should there be two electric charges? But then we discovered that if you have a particle going one way in time, and it turns around and comes backward in time, it behaves as if it had the opposite electric charge and was going in the normal way in time. So that was the idea of electrons and positrons. You might say, if you have an electron here and a positron here, and they come together and annihilate, that's it. But an alternative way to look at it to say this electron here goes up, turns around and goes back here. It doesn't make this annihilation business be so spectacularly different from ordinary deflections of particles.
This is John Archibald Wheeler. He helped develop the atomic bomb, and he also coined the phrase black hole. So if you've heard of a black hole or whatever, then that's John Archibald Wheeler. Now, him and his student Richard Feynman proposed what he just explained to you, that an electron is going forward in time, and a positron is that same electron going backwards in time. So they're talking about retrocausality like it's real. And if that sounds spooky to you, then it sounded spooky to Einstein. He called entanglement spooky action at a distance because he couldn't explain it. But retrocausality, which is what I teach and what I'm explaining to you, is a real thing. Now here is Dr. Ben Miles.
Let's look again at this situation and envisage a retrocausality explanation. According to retrocausality, as soon as the measurement was made on the first particle, that decision was correlated back through time to the very moment where these two photons were created, allowing that correlation to influence and embed in both photons so that they agree on their spin direction when measured at some future point in time.
Now, if you take Dr. Ben Miles or John Archibald Wheeler or some of the smarter people on the planet at face value, then retrocausality could be a thing. Now, if we look at experiments like the delayed choice quantum eraser, it has proven retrocausality can occur. Proven it. There's people out there that they look at their watch and it goes tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, and they feel linear and squishy. They feel that. You feel real. But if your brain doesn't contain the memories, it's almost audacious to think that our brains hold memories when our memory, like how vain are we to think that our brain can store every little thing that we've seen, when really it's much more simpler. It's just these things are actually happening always and forever. So we've learned to tune into our perceived history. And our past changes and our future changes. Everything's based on the now. Our expectations. Expectations, faith runs the caboodle, cause quantum collapses even into the perceived past. So if you don't understand that there is a reincarnational growth that occurs, then that's just a lack of education on the behalf of the viewer. If you're watching this and you feel like you're linear and squishy because your clock goes tick tock, and I'm saying, oh no, everything's simultaneous, and you're like, oh, I don't agree with Albert Einstein, I don't agree with John Archibald Wheeler, the clock goes tick tock. I'm saying I do a good impersonation of Modals. But that's the kind of Neanderthal thinking that you have to think that you're a real boy or girl. When in fact, what we're living in could best be described as a common dream that we share. And it's all very, very simple. It's very simple. A child should be able to understand what I'm teaching. If time doesn't exist, then memories in a brain would be redundant. Like, that's a true or false question. You wouldn't need to store any memory in some imaginary brain if the imaginary brain is simultaneous to all those events. So your brain's tuning into your first kiss, and it's like, oh, there's some sort of engram over there, my first kiss. But meanwhile, your first kiss is happening across the street, metaphorically, in the block universe. So you got two choices. You can either believe, A, that it's like some sort of fictitious engram, which they've never found. No neuroscientist will ever find a memory engram in a brain. They may as well be a proctologist, like looking for consciousness, because that's as close as a neuroscientist will ever get to consciousness. They're wasting their time looking for consciousness within a brain. The brain is at best an antenna, a chemical factory for this meat suit. But when you die, all of your memories are preserved forever. Your first kiss is simultaneous to 1,000,000,001 years from tomorrow. All you are is resonance. So you should try and die happy. I laugh. I come across Graph, but I try to be a happy person. I enjoy playing games. I don't care about things like views and stuff like that on my channel. I care about some of the stuff I do is I address to certain names, certain skeptics. I'm trying to open some people's minds to the notion of my theory of everything. Because if your memories are forever and ever stored as simultaneous events, then you can reason out how evolution worked and stuff like that. Aristotle suggested that there was a teleology, like that. So basically, a cat expecting a bowl of milk today helped create the universe, because that expectation sort of created everything that built up to this point in time, in our perceived linear time. If you have to put a beginning on physicality in time, it was when Earth Air was born. And let's say water fire. Let's go right to the beginning. So water fire was water is emotion, metaphorically. Fire is light, metaphorically. So in the beginning, there was maybe like a flashing light. Imagine, it might not have been a flashing light, just whatever. for the sake of this metaphor, there's a flashing light going flash, flash, flash. And then there's water that had to care enough to notice. If it didn't care enough to notice the flashing light, then the universe never would have been born. It had to have emotion enough to see the light and register that it was flashing on and off. Metaphorically. It cared enough to notice the fire, the light. And that is what created everything. Us, everything, the time, everything. And earth air is an extension of that. Earth air actually comes from fire, water. They're secondary elements. So everything that you experience is really sort of a literary metaphor, because every word in this sentence, because your brain is not required for consciousness, then that allows for consciousness in everything, even like geometry, every idea. For example, your toaster, void of brain, is aware that it is simultaneously at the factory. It also doesn't have a brain. It also doesn't need to have some sort of engram or whatever that it can tune into. So your toaster just knows that it is somewhere else. It's got that rudimentary consciousness from our perspective, void of eyes, ears, nose. And it's simpler to our way of thinking. Now, if that toaster wanted to evolve into a person, then that toaster has to pay its dues. It has to go through the role. It has to go through many lifetimes. It has to become a plant if it wants to learn how to breathe. The toaster needs to become a fishy if it wants to waggle its buttocks to move. The toaster would need to become a crab if it wants to learn opposable thumbs. Like, its evolution is more teleological. Maybe I'm expanding on Aristotle, but I'm also disavowing anything to do with Charles Darwin. So Charles Darwin and Sigmund Freud are both to be written off as unintelligent according to my theories of everything. There was no evolution. Evolution is we personally evolve. You personally evolve. Lifetime to lifetime we grow. Now, because your toaster doesn't need a brain to have consciousness, then that allows consciousness for everything. I just say toaster, but a rock thinks that the hard problem of consciousness is ridiculous. It probably doesn't ponder the universe as much as we do, but the rock knows that it's a rock, and it knows like what it's composed of, and it knows what it's simultaneously doing out in other what it is. Now, there's sort of a mass consciousness via personification. Like I said, this is a very literal universe. You can understand the universe if you think of it in literary terms. It's very, we're personifications away from the mass conscious. But we're mass conscious underneath. We're all the same. We're all one. All for one. Oh, cheers. Yeah. All for one for all. Okay, so now, if your toaster, void of brain, can be aware that it is simultaneously at the factory, then it has a consciousness. And if your toaster can have a consciousness, then what about the word toaster? If we're living in an imaginary universe, or if we're living in Hermetic principle numero uno, which they've been teaching for thousands and thousands of years before Rene Descartes' mommy told him that he's a real boy, if we assume that we're living in that giant imagination, which all current science seems to say that we are, and I'm explaining reality to you, there is an underlying mass consciousness in everything. So if you take a group of ketchup bottles and you put them all on a grocery shop shelf, they would all have a similar resonance, and they would all be like the same amount of ketchup. They'd all be like red facing out facing. They'd all be like similar resonance ketchup bottles. They'd all be the same similar shape, size, everything. But if you took one of those ketchup bottles and you drew a mustache on it and you called that ketchup bottle Fred, and every day you're like, hey Fred, how you doing? And you treated it like sort of like a doll or Wilson on the TV show or movie, the soccer ball. If you personify an object like that, then what you're doing is you're drawing it away from that group consciousness and you're opening it up to more conscious thoughts. And I haven't gotten into that part yet, but all thoughts are conscious. Thoughts themselves, every word in this sentence is as conscious as a toaster. The thoughts petition us. That's why a flock of birds will all turn left at the same time. That's why a school of fish will all turn right at the same time. They will all follow the thoughts that are dancing to them. The thoughts don't exist inside anything. The thoughts don't exist inside my empty brain or head. Look how empty my head is. The fact is that all your memories are simultaneous to now, and the way to get to anything is to dwell on something or practice. Any answer you can get to with logic, reasoning, and repetition. Repetition is the most obvious hack to focus in a mental universe. In a mental universe, everything that everybody is possible, if you think, oh, aliens are possible, that automatically becomes probable if we're living inside basically an imaginary universe, a universal mind. It becomes probable. I mean, what kind of cheap-ass giant imagination would we be living in if we couldn't do alien stuff and teleport stuff from planet to planet someday? Like, we need to have this sort of, like, interesting stuff in our foreverness. And we've created this, and it's a universe based on expectations. Earth Air is based on expectations. Faith, expectations, faith runs the caboodle, causes quantum collapses even into the perceived past. And a lot of these quotes, I've published 3 books on this. I've published Theory of Everything Mind and Miracles Are Too Easy on YouTube. They're audiobooks even. And I've published a lot of these quotes already. These theories are my own. I'm Wayne Hilborn. I'm the teacher of reality. Nobody teaches what I teach on this channel. Also, if you're overweight, research dry fasting because weight loss is unrelated to calories. There's people that have done dry fasting mixed with water fasting where they've lost more weight than is medically considered possible right now, because what happens is your body will seek water from the cells and melt it as opposed to seeking calories or glucose from a cell and melting it. So there's 2 different processes going on, but seeking the water from the cell is way, way more efficient apparently than seeking calories. So I personally lost over 100 pounds mixing dry fasting with water fasting, and I found weight loss very, very easy. So maybe I just manifested how to do weight loss easy, but it's dry fasting. Mix dry fasting with water fasting. I have a video on my channel about dry fasting, and I show my before and after pictures, so I'm not talking at my butt. I know what I'm talking about. So everything is conscious. Your ketchup bottle, once you personify that Fred ketchup bottle, you got that mustache on, you call him Fred, then you bring him into the world of other thought forms. And the more personified something is, the more ego it gets in its resonance. And once you personify away from the mass consciousness all, there's no going back. Because your resonance, all you are is resonance. That you're like, okay, somewhere you're like just a little tiny, like not even a molecule, you're like a vibration, like the universe is vibrations. I talk about electrons and positrons and stuff like that, but it's all vibrations, and none of it's real. We're all just, it's all imaginary. Consciousness is built upon consciousness. But resonance, what I call resonance, is what you are. I don't want to talk about free will because it's very complicated. Like writer's block, for example, is caused because the writer's mother doesn't expect them to write a best-selling novel and manifest $1 billion and buy her a castle, because the mother just doesn't believe that the daughter writer, whatever, is going to buy them a castle. So the mother is sort of holding back, is causing the writer's block in the writer. Or if someone wakes up to go help someone in need that's really pessimistic, then their alarm would shut off like in the middle of the night, or their car would break down, or they couldn't find their keys, or something would happen to make them late, because the person in need doesn't expect anyone to come help them, because they're such a woe is me type person or whatever. Their negativity affected the world. So free will is sort of a iffy thing. But now, if we talk about thoughts as external from our minds, and I don't want people to think that your mind is related to the brain, because if memory is simultaneous events, then your brain is just worm food someday. It's not even meaningful. It's like, okay, there's no difference between nocturnal dream toast and toast that you would have in what you deem a kitchen today. There's no difference between what we deem actuality and the nocturnal dream world. You could have a nocturnal dream mommy and a nocturnal dream daddy, and they could like bounce you on like their nocturnal dream knees and say, "Oh, you're a real boy, you're a real boy, you're a real boy," and like you could suck it up and you could be like, "Oh yeah, I'm a real boy," but then you would wake up, and were you real, or what was that? And okay, let's talk about Occam's razor. It's almost ridiculous to think that there's two ways to experience that. Why would the universe create a way that you can experience nocturnal dream toast in a nocturnal dream kitchen, and through a completely different evolutionary process or whatever, actually created some sort of reality, what we deem mistakenly, or not me, but like the unsmarts, what the unsmarts deem reality is just a dream of sorts. It's just a very realistic dream. But you cannot prove that you're not... Okay, here's the ridiculousness of the atheist argument. The atheists say, and send any atheist to me, because no atheist can prove that they're not living the dream like the rest of us. Self-pinching inside of a dream does not make you real. And that's the only thing that can prove that you're real. You just self-pinch really, really hard, and if you don't wake up, then, oh, you must be real. Oh, and your clock going, your watch going tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. Oh, that must prove that Einstein's view on time and Wheeler's, John Archibald Wheeler's, and Richard Feynman and John Archibald Wheeler built a whole body of work based on retrocausality. And I'm not making this up. And for those people that manifest, pay attention, because many things that you manifest will not make linear time sense. Whether you're manifesting a parking space or a song on the radio, sometimes those things will seem like they were on their way to you before you gave intent. You can start giving intentions for something when you're in positivity, like a raffle at a wedding or something, whatever, something like that. If you're positive in whatever, you retrocausality, you cause yourself to like win in situations and stuff like that. You reverse time to make things happen. A woman in a town of 10 men may feel limited in her dating pool. But if that woman understood that retrocausality works with manifesting, then her choice of men goes from 10 men to tens of millions of men. Like more than 1,000-fold, her expectations increase once she understands the nature of energy follows all thoughts. Because this is a mental universe, and repetition is the most obvious hack to focus. And what I'm saying should be intuitive to everyone. Or you shouldn't be watching me, maybe. I don't know. But you can't prove that you're real. Nobody can prove they're real. I know I come across as gruff, and I do repeat my stuff because I'm practicing no offense, I'm practicing at dumbing down what consciousness is. I'm trying to say it in a logical and reasonable way, so I do repeat a lot of my examples, which I've used in my books, and this speech has taken years of practice in my books and writing, because I'm like, understanding reality is easy. It's explaining it to these academics and morons and atheists and skeptics that is hard, or harder. And I'm not really. I don't believe in. I'm not really one for advertising or making videos. I'm content to go play Ark online on my video game. I'm not really. But I feel I'm the one that can challenge these people, these skeptics, and that's one of my purposes, is to start changing the way people think. And if you found my videos, then good, because dying is very safe, because every memory that makes you is simultaneous to 1,000,000,001 years from tomorrow. You could watch your whole life on repeat. People can get reincarnated into the past. There is no time. Time is an illusion. Okay, so now what would happen to that ketchup bottle if it finished evolving? Like, the ketchup bottle goes through like thousands and thousands and thousands of lifetimes, and eventually it passes humanhood and whatever else we evolve into, and in another like thousands or so lifetimes it reaches its highest, godliest, most godly self that it could possibly be. So you personally are going to get to your highest, possibly most godly self someday. So what will that feel like to you? What will you feel like in 1,000 lifetimes when you evolve into that form of God? Okay, now what you think of as thoughts are outside of us. So when you reach that elevation to a godly self, or closest to the all, which would be to try and distance yourself from most of your personifications, if you could reach that level with the trillions of others before you, then you would still feel exactly like you do today, because you would just be pushing away the thoughts like you do in meditation. And nobody can tell you that that's why we push away thoughts in meditation, is because thoughts aren't part of us. No thoughts are part of us. You can think, oh yeah, well, I'm thinking, oh, so I'm so kind or whatever. But my wisdom, the wisdom that you have comes from the thoughts that care to entangle with you, that associate with you, because of your growth from lifetime to lifetime. This is a mid-loka. If I haven't mentioned any religions in this entire deal, I've spoken about Einstein's block universe. I've spoken about John Archibald Wheeler's delayed choice quantum eraser. I've spoken about retrocausality, which is real. I've talked about manifesting and noticing that the past can change using manifesting, because that's the best way to learn that magic. Well, you learn that magic is real before you start manifesting, I guess. Or not, whatever. Magic is real, manifesting is real. Many things you manifest won't make linear time sense. So if you have a history of manifesting things, then sit down and reason with the pen and paper when you got that item, when you started giving intent, and how it got to you, when it was on its way to you. Did a neighbor or cousin have that thing and decide to give it to you like a few months later? Like, you cause retrocausality. We cause retrocausality in everything. So the past changes to bring us our intentions. How blessed is that? We're living in a utopia where the universe brings us everything that we expect. Could you imagine if if everybody was just expecting like good stuff, like a lot more? But you need bad to have good. And if I say worry is the root of all evil and daydreaming is the root of all good, that statement might go over the heads of a lot of people. Because people think, oh, worrying grandmother doesn't like hurt her grandkids. It's the guy that ran them over, the drunk driver that ran them over, that hurt the grandkids. But maybe the grandmother was visualizing her grandkids lying in the ditch bleeding every time they were 10 minutes late for supper. That worry is what I would call visualizing bad stuff with emotion. Bad crap with emotion. Worry equals visualizing bad crap with emotion. It's manifesting bad crap 101. So you need to learn to distract from worry. Worry is pretty common. Even everybody. You can't have a desire without an attached worry. So it's a catch-22. You sin just by being, I guess, was the overall one of the Christian messages or whatever. But like I said, I haven't talked much on religion. If I had to label them, I would put Hermeticism first, Hinduism second, Buddhism third, distant third, then the Abrahamic religions, which are just sort of basic. And because in the end, you are God simultaneously to yesterday, but with hindsight in 2020. You are God, but with hindsight in 2020. Simultaneously to now, simultaneously to yesterday. You are God simultaneously to yesterday, but with hindsight in 2020. That's one of my quotes from my books. Like I said, some of my books are online. I do have videos coming out on I have a second video coming out on magic, but I'm taking my time because I don't do videos until I'm ready. I feel like I should. I can speak on this topic of consciousness and reality because everything I say makes common sense. A brain would the brain be redundant for memory if time is an illusion? Yes or no? That's like yes or no. How so you could say, oh yeah, but the brain still developed like an engram system or whatever. If you want to believe that, go ahead. But I'm telling you, you're just going to be born to a smarter mom someday that'll teach you that you're not a real boy. Telling a child that they're a real boy is sort of child abuse. Because I can't even imagine not understanding. Like, people are dying and they're like, oh, this is it. I'm it. Oh. No, it's not funny. You're all immortal changelings. Lifetime to lifetime you grow, and you're not done growing. Aristotle was right. Teleological is wrong. I expand on the teleology. I teach proper what evolution really was. And evolution is wrong. Charles Darwin was wrong. Sigmund Freud was way, way wrong. I technically, I guess, am the father of psychology with my theory of everything mind. Because I'm teaching you what thoughts are. And what could be more important than that to a person that's got like psychosis and stuff like that going on? I'm telling you, and energy follows all thoughts, and repetition is the most obvious act of focus. And there's a lot that can be done to change these people if they... And a lot of times we lock up our prophets and we throw them in mental institutions. And they're living on the streets. And then we ignore. An imaginary universe, everything we can imagine is probable. Everything you thought possible is probable. I could go into some imaginary forms, and I don't want to lose people I've already got, but what I teach is the basics and an introduction to the understanding that it's logical and reasonable to think that you live forever if time is an illusion. If memory is external from what we've been told of as brain engrams, then you have no choice but to live forever and ever. It's like a default. It's like you have to suck it up if it really bothers you. They're like, well, it is almost more scary. Like to think that you can live the lifetime of a quadrillion trees, and like that's still like a flash of like It's like a flash to what forever really means. Lifetime of a quadrillion trees is nothing compared to like how long you're going to be resonating. It's like forever is like really, really long. Think of a long bank line up and then like add forever to it. So it's blessed that you can forget your divinity. But it doesn't make common sense that you do. It doesn't make common sense that anybody pinches themselves and says, "Oh yeah, I'm a real boy. My mommy said so." That is the only proof any skeptic or atheist has that they're not living the dream like the rest of us. I'm a dumb atheist. I'm a dumb skeptic. Atheism and skepticism is really dumb. First of all, you can't even prove a negative. So, like, why do they even try? But I'm giving you the logic and reasoning as explained to you in your own fallacious religion of science if you're like a scientist. Because even scientists understands that the chunks of now aren't consistent. Speed affects our now. Even in the same room, your now is slightly different than the now of your friends just based on walking around. You're still like, things are still going like a speed of light and the time is still adjusting accordingly. They've proven this using atomic clocks on an airplane. So if like you're really slow, like learner, and you don't understand things, you see your clock go tick tock, then you could go and you could like watch one of these atomic clock type experiments, and you can see for yourself through experimentation that the nows are changing for the two different clocks going two different times. So just because one's going on an airplane speed and the other one's like stuck on the ground, you would have to wonder why, like how that would affect everything. Like the time, not just the time of everybody you know is also being affected in a similar way by speed, but on much minuter scales, smaller scales. Time is an illusion. If you cannot grasp that time is an illusion, then that is a lack of education on your part. So you need to up your game and learn if you want to understand your divinity and your divine nature. And if you found my video, then you're off to a good start. I'm not supposed to... I challenge myself not to advertise because to my way of thinking, even teaching is a form of worry. And I teach against worry. So I'm like, should I teach what I know? Should I sit quiet? Should I just assume that the world's going to be a better place? We're blessed. The universe is awesome. What could be more perfect? The universe retrocausally changes. Everyone you know that's dead is alive. And they're not changed really from what they were because the thoughts that petition us are still associated with us after death. And so we don't there's no like larger consciousness that will gobble you up or whatever like that. You're not, it doesn't work that way. There's no like absorption or whatever. You're not just going to dissolve and be like whatever. You're not going to get eaten by a larger mind. All minds are equal by default. Even your toaster or fruit fly is equal to you. Technically. And the way you should think of it. So think twice before you kill a mosquito outside or you do something. If you can save a bug, if you can let a fly out the door as opposed to swatting it, then do so. They're just little baby souls, little cute they're flies, but they're little cute little baby souls trying to like make their way in the universe. So you open up the door, you let it out. You make someone happy, even if it's a fly. Politics should be, you should be for things like universal health care and helping, and there's people out there that are being taught that police stations and libraries aren't socialist. The government, if the government owns a building and pays for the employees, then it's as single payer and socialist as any Canadian hospital. And I'm happy I live in Toronto, Canada. I got the number 3 hospital on planet Earth in my city, and it's free for anyone in my family. It's not number 3 on planet Earth because it's a bad hospital. Toronto has world-class hospitals, and Canada is blessed for its healthcare and way of life. So people that are conservative and they want advocate for things like guns and stuff like that, these are thought forms that you are going to bring into your next incarnations. So if you dwell on the thought form of, say, Napoleon, because you have a Napoleon painting behind your desk in your office, if you dwell on that painting like maybe a couple of times a day or something like that, then what would happen if you pass on? Then you're going to be thinking of Napoleon, blah, blah, blah. You might get reincarnated into one of his armies or something, because you can get reincarnated in the past. That's a possibility for all. But it's what you dwell upon. If you want to get reincarnated in the future, then make sure you stay up on all your tech and such and such. So, do you want to have a Napoleon painting up on your wall that you dwell upon every day? Do you want to, if this is an imaginary universe, is thinking about war the best thing for your incarnations, future incarnations? How many wars do you want to be in your future, perceived future? This Earth Air isn't the smartest loci. There are better locus. They're like private server realms. You have to learn not to worry as much and play more. I'm coming across so gruff, and I'm trying to tell you, you have to learn how to play. Have fun. You have to experience life and just enjoy life. If you see something bad, you have to let it go. You have to learn to let go. A lot of lessons in life are to learn to let go. And they'll be painful ones, like losing a pet or losing will be like, oh. And it's painful to lose a pet or a loved one because we miss that companionship. However, part of our nature as immortal beings is we have to learn to let go of that. We have to let go of we have to realize that they are good wherever they are, and they are on their own journey of foreverness. And you're on your own journey of foreverness. Now, you can attach to the different personalities, but that's not always, in the afterlife, that's not always the way you go, because what you perceive of as a mom or dad in this lifetime, you may have been their mom and dad like in 2 lifetimes. And sometimes families will stay together in various reincarnational cycles. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes people just move on. But it's a lesson. And you need to learn to appreciate. Gratitude is the most obvious hack to love. Gratitude is the most obvious hack to love. Repetition is the most obvious hack to focus. These are copyrighted quotes from Wayne Hilborn books. Repetition is the most obvious hack to focus. But gratitude is a hack to love. So be grateful for everything. If your toast gives you good toast, thank it. Thank it out loud. People are going to think that you're crazy talking to yourself. I think you're crazy if you don't talk to yourself, because you're not really yourself. You're like a psychic gestalt of all the thought forms that surround you. And there's a world of thought forms at various resonances that petition our minds and they feel physical and real and elementals, and I don't want to get into the astral aspects of thought forms, but everything that we can imagine is probable in an imaginary universe. Things are like, again, I said, what kind of cheap ass universe would this be if we didn't have aliens and things? So we need to be able to do Star Trek type stuff just to like keep it real, just to like enjoy and like live every sort of possibility that we can. So we gotta like think like Star Trek. We gotta, because like universal basic income may sound like, oh, they're stealing from us and whatever, but no, people on universal basic income, a lot of times they still want to better themselves. They'll educate, they'll start businesses, they'll improve themselves. So like on Star Trek, and it's a way to invite technology, because if you don't feed the field workers, this is a technology metaphor, if you don't feed the field workers, they'll destroy the tractors. Like, having a tractor do all the field work is fine, but the field workers, if they're starving, they'll come destroy that tractor. And that's the same with society and the same with technology in general. You need to, so universal basic income is a proper, I guess I advocate left-wing things, but I'm also trying to teach you that the universe is mental, and the all is mind, and we are all one. So helping your fellow is helping you. And now you shouldn't go around helping things just because you're helping yourself. But maybe you should. I don't know. Use your own motivations. But you live forever, so that sort of changes the way that you have looked at things if you thought otherwise. For anyone that thinks that their brain contains their memories and feels like a mortal, then they might not be as motivated to stay away from Napoleon paintings. That Napoleon painting is not going to serve you very well at all. Scenes of war. Hang a picture of a purple dinosaur or unicorn or something fun. Rainbows are better than thoughts of war. Harps and violins. Am I saying anything that doesn't make common sense to anybody? Because I can't understand why the universe, why mankind can't just like say science is dumb if we share a common dream. Like, it seems obvious that we're living in a dream according to like known science. Like, I've shown the science already, like at the beginning of the video, of why like we're retrocausal. Retrocausality is the real deal. And it's amazing that it's not obvious to everybody. Like, they teach it. Like Einstein's theory of simultaneity, the relativity of simultaneity, has been out for 100 years. I'm not sure what year it came. Was it? I was going to ask Google. Okay, so theory of relativity came out in 1905. So we've been over 100 years. Mankind has known that there's different now slices for everybody. Everybody. You have a different now slice than somebody that's going at work, and it's constantly changing. The universe, the time is really wonky, even at the Einstein level. And then when you go into the quantum mechanics, people say, oh, the block universe gets rid of free will and stuff like that, but they forget that we're creating it from the now. And based on our resonances from the now, we can affect the past, what we perceive of as the past. And that is the mechanism that people ignore, is that the past has a way of changing. And even though that's been proven on the quantum physics level, mankind hasn't grasped that it occurs on the manifesting level and the science level, like on reality level. So I'm Wayne Hilborn, and this is my theory of everything. I'm the one that am the father of psychology. I'm the one that teaches that consciousness equals simultaneous offense mankind foolishly deems memory. Your senses, your eyes, ears, nose, and mouth, they aren't part of your consciousness. They are thought forms and ideas that we've developed, like the opposable thumbs, through lifetime of associations. Like when you were a plant, you started like developing like the ability to breathe and like the ability to see and stuff like that. Like some plants are like developing like the photosynthesis. You're learning to see. So like the plants are learning to see with their photosynthesis and stuff like that at a rudimentary level. But by the time that they evolve into humans, or the time that you evolved into a human, then your eyes are more developed. And I'll talk about that when I do the Magic video number 2 on healing. But don't expect that video to come out anytime soon. I don't work that way. I have a series of videos I plan on addressing the various skeptics and people that I think are influencers on topics of maybe weight loss. Maybe, I don't know what I'm planning on doing. I don't promise. I'm not after views. I'm not after money. I think that if I change the religion of anyone, avoid teething to any religions, but teeth to me, because what I teach I think deserves maybe an editor or something, because I could do proper videos but I'm not motivated. Maybe I could have like somebody like put my videos together in a more professional way. But what I teach is, in this video alone, is enough to make you understand or rethink your understanding of what we currently believe is time and reality. Einstein's time-space go hand in hand. If you change space, you change the time, you change everything. And when we go into topics like retrocausality, that is spooky. To think that entangled particles can like mimic the opposites so far apart, like you could take one entangled particle like to the other side of the galaxy, and if it was positive, then this other one would be negative. So no matter how far you go apart, if this one was negative, the other one would be positive. Vice versa. Whatever you observe on the one, the other one, you know, is faster than light communicating somehow possible. And we saw earlier the Dr. Ben Miles video suggests that retrocausality might be one of the explanations for Einstein's spooky action at a distance, which is the case. Retrocausality is the only explanation for entangled particles. The 2022 Nobel Prize in quantum mechanics, or the 2020 Nobel Prize in physics, was on entangled particles, and they proved that Einstein lost the Bohr-Einstein debates, and that Bohr posthumously won the Bohr-Einstein debates, and that the Copenhagen interpretation is somewhat real. Matter does not exist unless it is observed. Now, the many worlds interpretation only has effect if you're in the confines of what you would deem more alone. Like when you're alone, your reality isn't as collapsed into like the universe expectations of all until you start associating more with others. Like if your coworkers expect you to be late on Monday morning because you're always late on Mondays, then even if you set your alarm and wake up early on Monday to be there bright and early, their expectations will make like the bus break down or your alarm shut off in the middle of the night or something, and it'll make you late even though your intentions were to come to work on time that day. So like expectations of those around you help shape your reality also. We're all creating reality. People ask why, if there's a God, would he create such evil and starving children and stuff like that? Well, it's because of the worrying grandmothers and mothers that worry. They sit there and visualize with emotion their children starving to death in front of them. And that kind of worry does nobody any good at all. And you can say, oh, they can just be positive and that'll bring food to their tummies. Yeah, sort of. That's the way it works. But it's overall expectations. So it's not their expectations alone. If you're visualizing people in what we deem a third world country starving, then you are the God that's causing that. Sort of. It's a combined mathematical weight of expectations combined by all. It's the most expectations of all that always wins the rugby match, football match. It's all common sense. It's all reasonable. It's all reasonable and logical if time is not real. And that's all you need to do is understand that time is not real to understand the Wayne Hilborn theory of everything. Because you can use this fact. It's a fact that time is not linear. You can use that fact to weigh your religion or lack thereof. Because what I'm saying, it matches Hermeticism perfectly. It matches Hinduism close. Hinduism has a caste system. And that is very wrong. Because I teach retrocausality where a person could even change their caste. You could change the age of your very soul, which is only a perceived linear history that causes your resonance. You could change the age of your very soul. Not soul, memory. Through expectations that you're an old soul. I'm going to give you all my secrets. Energy follows all thoughts. A guru cannot levitate inside of a stadium filled with doubt. We live in a world of expectations, so if you're expecting somebody to fly past your window, like in the Matrix, don't hold your breath, because you need to earn. There's levels. Things that are common in other lokas aren't expected here. Things that we can do yesteryear, we couldn't do today because of the way we foolishly, collectively think of ourselves as separate. You're just a personified ketchup bottle. You've just moved away from the group ketchup bottle consciousness. Whatever you were, you started as something inanimate, most likely. A dog's squeaky toy could create a linear personification. If the dog personified that squeaky toy or a ketchup bottle that he deems as his squeaky toy, if he personifies that as something, then he creates that visualization and he helps that object interact with the thought forms that would be associated with such a thing, as rudimentary as what that might seem to us. Use your own logic and reasoning. Challenge what I say in your mind. Don't be satisfied with what I say. If I say manifesting is simple and easy, then do it. Try. Energy is the most obvious hack to focus. Think of something on repeat like Bigfoot, 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 and then turn on any random film and that topic will be randomly embedded in that film. But pick your own topic and do your own work. In my first magic video, I teach, and one of the first sentences of Miracles Are Too Easy is I teach that if you take 2 bags of steamed rice or Tupperware containers of steamed rice, cooked steamed rice, and you bless one every day, you're like, oh, and you physically talk to it. You say, oh, I love you, bless it, you look so nice. Like, right, I love rice and hate rice on the various ones. And you can say, oh, I love you, love rice, you're so pretty and nice and delicious. And this other one, the other one, you'd be your hate rice. And you'd be like, oh, I hate you, yucky rice, you're so yucky, disgusting, and whatever. And you talk to these both for 1 minute each day. And you have to do the work. You can't just believe me because I might be talking out my butt. You don't know. You don't know if what I say is real or not. I make a lot of common sense because clearly anyone like smarter than a toad should be able to realize that pinching yourself doesn't make yourself real. You can pinch yourself in a nocturnal dream at night, and that doesn't mean you're not sharing the same dream like the rest of us. It just doesn't. There is no common sense in believing that your mom was correct in telling you that you're a real boy. You assume that your mommy was right in telling you that you're a real boy or girl. That is the assumption that science makes. Everyone makes that assumption. Not everyone. Not the smart folk. Thoughts are themselves conscious. This is a Wayne Hilborn theory of everything. Thoughts are conscious. The mind is external from the body. The mind is external from the brain. If your memory of a first kiss is simultaneous to 1,000,000,001 years from tomorrow, as opposed to being an engram in your brain, now think about that. Weigh that. That is one possibility. Maybe in our simultaneous timeless universe, maybe a brain magically develops some way of like recording every single thing that you've seen in your lifetime. Like maybe. It just doesn't make much sense. The 2022 Nobel Prize in Quantum Mechanics, or the 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics, proved that physics itself was a dumbass notion. Because determinism cannot work any longer. Determinism has always been a bad idea. And that has been proven by the 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics. If you do not know that the 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics proved that determinism is flawed, then that is a lack of education on the viewer, or you. It's your lack of education that is why you don't understand that determinism is a flawed notion based on the 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics. I'm not making that up. You have to hop aboard the super determinism bandwagon if you want to go there. You can't go with determinism anymore. Determinism that's gone. So the only loophole in Bell's theorem would be super determinism, and that's really wacko. But that's where the realists want to go. That's where so you could be A, super deterministic, or B, you could just follow your common sense and realize that you're living inside of what can best be described as a common dream. And dying is very, very safe. All your pets, all your loved ones, they're all safe. You see them in your night, or time isn't simultaneous, so technically you're seeing them all now. But I get it. It's sad for us because change is psychological loss, and the psychological loss is something that we have to learn to deal with. And we gain this empathy from this that we can't get through other means. And there is no reason even for like disease unless it's to teach you something. Like it's just people don't expect to live forever, so we have terminations. I think Sundays was meant as our day of rest because we know that Moses was likely King Tut's dad, and we know Egypt was big on fasting. And I think that Sundays was meant as a dry fasting day because it has more lethargy than water fasting. Dry fasting is the key to health and weight loss. You don't need to go extreme, just like 48 hours, mix it with water fasting for a day, and then continue. Like 2 days dry fasting to 1 day water fasting. That will lose so much weight. Like I'm talking, you would lose net 15 pounds a week if you were a fat person. A fat person that did that regime 4 times per month, 2 days dry, 1 day water fast, 2 more days dry fasting. Person did that 4 weeks a month, and then they like ate calorie neutral and ate and drank calorie neutral every weekend. Then they would lose about 28 kilograms or 60 pounds every month. Every month they would be losing like 60 kilograms or 60 pounds. So like the very fattest person you know, if they did the dry fast, if they made a water deficit as opposed to calorie deficit, water deficit as opposed to calorie deficit, water deficit as opposed to calorie deficit. If they made water deficit as opposed to calorie deficit, then their fat vanishes. The fattest person you know could have abs on the beach by summertime if they learned about water deficit as the way for weight loss. So that's another thing I teach on my channel. My book, I've worded it with I'm happy with what I've been writing and saying, but I'm trying to learn to teach this. So anybody that follows my videos, they're going to have to learn that I am repetitive and I want to make each video stand alone. So if somebody is coming on my video and they're like, oh, he says, oh, you're fictional, blah, 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 and I pinch myself, then I want them to understand that I want them to understand. Maybe you understand already if you follow my videos. Maybe you understand, but others may not. So for the sake of them, I am repetitive. I do use my copyrighted quotes or whatever a lot. Many things I say that I've said so many times, like science is the foolish religion if we share a common dream. Repetition is the most obvious hack to focus. Gratitude is the most obvious hack to love. Expectations, faith runs like a poodle, causes quantum collapse even in perceived past. Consciousness equals simultaneous time equals memory. A toaster void of brain is aware, conscious equals memory, that it is simultaneously at the factory. All these sayings all those sentences that I just said, they're all like in my books and copyrighted, and this is my theory of everything. I am the author of this theory. There's nobody on earth that teaches what I teach. There's nobody there's nobody else that teaches the spirituality that I know of. I don't want to endorse any author. I can't endorse anybody confidently. I would recommend dead people. Jane Roberts Seth, I think that people could gain insight from, and anything by, well, not anything, but some by Dorothy Cannon, because her methods of using hypnosis to interact with patients was novel and good. but I don't. But I think she was led down the garden path on some of it. However, Dorothy Cannon and Jane Roberts, Seth Speaks, books of that nature. I host 2 books online. Harold Sherman, How to Make ESP Work for You. I highly recommend that book. Like again, I said I host that online, and also I host Franz Barden's Introduction into Hermeticism. I host that online. If I've changed your religion, then, like I said, tease to me as opposed to teasing to those religions, because what I say could benefit from a studio editing, proper questions, like proper staff. I don't know. You know what I mean. I am just in front of a camera saying what I know. And I know more than a lot. And I'm not going to... This isn't a debate. If somebody wants to challenge what I say, then they should be prepared to prove that they're a real boy or a real girl, because that's their say-so is sort of like the only thing they got, which isn't logical or reasonable. It's an assumption. All science is based on like the assumption that we're real from the get-go. I see people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, and I watch the guy, he talk about block universe. He seems to understand that the universe is happening all simultaneously, but he can't wrap his head around the fact, and I say head, but I mean, he can't wrap his exterior mind around the fact that if time is an illusion, then memories don't need a storage place. Well, you don't need to store a memory of something that's gonna be happening forever if you could just like watch it again. What haven't I spoken of? In the way of, I've taught that you are God simultaneously to yesterday, but with hindsight in 2020. I've taught that you should play Arc Online. That you should have fun with life. That how you were as a child, with the wonder and awe, and appreciate everything, because the painful lessons come when we stop appreciating our pets. If we stop appreciating a pet, they go. They vanish from our lives. And it's orchestrated. We don't think that we choose illnesses. We don't think that we choose our deaths. We don't think that we choose to be in a plane crash. We don't think that we choose things of that nature. We don't think that. We don't assume that there's another part of us that knows what's going on. Because like in our physicality, for a good metaphor, you're sort of like playing a video game. So like during the day you're playing the video game, and then at nighttime you put the controller down, and then you're you again. Your thoughts come to you, the same thoughts that would hit you during the day, but you have a little bit more awareness because you know what you are and you know that you're forever. So death might be more appealing than what the universe has in store for you on Earth if you continue down your trajectory. So it might throw an illness, or it might kill you in some unique way. Maybe you wanted to die in a squirrel suit going down a mountain or whatever. And that's something to write home about when you get up there. You're like, whoa, I died in a squirrel suit. Ooh, that's having so much fun. And everyone be like, oh, I want to die in a squirrel suit. That sounds like fun. Everything that you do could happen in a nocturnal dream. The nocturnal dreams we have are separate. we don't share them as commonly. It's more of like I said, the thoughts aren't actually ours. So the thoughts in the dream will slide from us and go elsewhere. But it's our essentially what we're doing is we're losing our higher resonance. Because when we're in that dream state, we're like in a really high resonance, and then like as we like come back down to earth, we're losing our resonance, and like you can still remember the dream because like you're like, oh, I'm gonna remember this dream forever. It's such a vivid dream, and then 5 minutes later you don't remember it because you've lost that resonance. And you can go back to that dream if you can achieve that resonance. So some people, one of the things I teach is lucid dreaming, which is most easily achieved if you set an alarm several hours before you awaken, and then you just keep hitting snooze for like 2 hours. But make sure you're really tired, so you're in a dream daze type thing. So like you're waking up and you're remembering your dream, and you got your dream journal handy or some sort of recording device. And then so you can dictate what your dream was, and then you can like immediately go back to sleep and achieve that same dream. And then you wake up like 10 minutes later, and you can keep doing that, and you can go back to the same dream for over the course of an hour. So like when the psychologists and that, they say things like, oh yeah, dreams only last a few minutes. It's like, no, I've seen dreams where like you've interacted with them for like over the course of an hour prior to waking up. So they're just wrong. And like you can have color in dreams, you can have all sorts of dreams and reality, what we deem reality, is just a combination of all expectations. And it works the same way because in the beginning there's just the fire and water, and the water observes the fire, and so it formed a dot. And then the universe was born with that dot. And then that dot formed a line. And that line could observe the dot to make it valid. And then another dot could observe the line. And then, hey, got a triangle. And it builds the platonic solids. It's consciousness is built upon consciousness. And we had to learn to do this because we don't really have a choice. The universe is just sort of unfolding as it always was. The idea of a simulation hypothesis is ridiculous because a simultaneous simulation could never be. Whatever we were or are had to arise organically from within. We could never have had, logically and reasonably, if what I'm saying is true about time being an illusion, we could not have had a creator race that created a simultaneous universe. You can't like create a simultaneous universe where you have any idea, where you have any realm of control. I mean, maybe we're doing it accidentally sometimes because there's many universes and many realms. But for the sake of argument, you can't just, I don't know. Some people, it's hard to explain. So if I teach that a rock has consciousness, or I teach that a toaster void of brain is aware, memory equals consciousness is simultaneously at the factory, and that the word toaster and that every word in the sentence is conscious in a way, then what about AI? Could AI be conscious? Now I'm going to surprise some people maybe by saying no, because it's not logical to think that AI could ever be conscious, because anyone that knows computer programming knows that all computer programming in any language is only if-then statements or a command statement, like that'll turn a switch on or off, or a light on or off, or something of that nature. So in a flowchart, there's only decision boxes, like yes or no answers, or a command box. And every program can be represented by a flowchart. Everything. There's decisions. Like a pause, if an AI voice is speaking to you, the pause between words would have a command line like x equals 1 to 100, x equals x plus 1, if x equals 100, next x else return. And what it would do is it would just add 1 to x, so it would be at 1, and it would see if that 1 is equal to 100. And if it's not, then it goes back to the beginning of the line, and it would keep going, and it would be at 2, and then it would go back, and it would be at 3, and it would keep repeating over and over, creating a perception of time. And then it would, when it reached 100, then it would say the next word. But it didn't think, oh, this is how long I should wait until I say the next word. This is all like been done by programming and computations. It's all done through if-then statements. Computers can only compare. Comparing is the same as a scale. You would need to make a scale conscious before you could make a computer program conscious, because a computer program is just essentially, it's a scale. It's comparing variables. It's comparing the value of x to like the value of 100 in the example that I just gave. There's no line in any computer program that says, okay, now think of something. A computer will never think of a random number between 1 and 5. Not in a quadrillion years. That just because even the neural nets that they say are whatever, that's all done through if-then statements and adding weights to various variables and just fancy programming. There's no, you can't isolate any program and say, oh, that's conscious, because if you analyze it in any language, it's just going to be if-then statements and the or command lines. So like it's a testament to human ingenuity that we can perceive AI as conscious or whatever, because or that we can make like computer villains like that seem realistic or whatever. Like we're doing things, they seem real, but it can never happen. It can never be. Logically and reasonably, you would be a fool to think that actual AI could happen. So even though a rock and a toaster are sentient, and even a computer has an awareness, it's not related to the program that runs it. And I don't want anyone thinking that based on my teachings that a robot or computer could ever be conscious. Now, with the quantum computers and that, there is opening up opportunities for communication with the afterlife, etc., like that. There's ways of even now with things like the I Ching and tarot cards, we're looking at static things, and we're using our understanding of retrocausal nature to realize that the garbage at our feet could be telling us the direction that we should be going. So when you're lost in the forest and you're like, oh, which way should I go? And then you see a candy bar wrapper like that direction, then maybe that's the direction you should go, because something's telling you to go in that direction. Or I'm not saying someone's going to get lost following my advice. The universe gives signs, and you need to be open to them. But like your signs are going to be twisted if you have negativity. If someone that expects to be lost, the candy bar is going to send them further into the woods, and someone that expects to be rescued, the dolphin will bring them to shore as opposed to drag them out to sea. I shouldn't say that. Dolphins are nice. They'll help anybody. Let's hope. And retrocausal is why like why prayer and stuff, why you a tooth fairy. This is how every major religion works, and I've written this story numerous times, and I'll say it now, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it 100 times more, 1,000 times more. Is that this is how every religion works? A tooth fairy could survive drowning in the ocean if he expects to survive, and here's how: a skeptic would just drown. But a tooth fairy, and he falls overboard in his sailboat or whatever, his sailboat goes down or whatever, and he's like sitting in the middle of the ocean, he's like, oh, Lord Tooth Fairy, please, like, save me. And so he's like treading there in the water. And this expectation, his faith, means that 3 days ago in the past, a cruise ship and 3,000 passengers, they're Schrodinger's cat in the box if you're a scientist type or whatever, and they alter their superposition. They're like a change in weather, or he just alters course an extra 2 degrees just because. And so now the cruise ship is on its way to rescue the Tooth Fairy 5 minutes after he falls in the water. So the Tooth Fairy falls overboard, and he's sitting there treading water, and he like expects the Lord Tooth Fairy to save him. And he's like, oh, please save me, Lord Tooth Fairy. And then as soon as he says that, then he sees a cruise ship coming over the horizon. Everyone's having a party, and so the Tooth Fairy gets rescued and has a big barbecue that night. And the skeptic, he's fish food. Because he didn't expect a rescue. He's like, oh, crap, I'm in the middle of the ocean. I'm a goner. Sharks are circling. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, blah, blah. But he's not really dead, is he? But your body, you don't want your body to be eaten by fish. Preferably. Your consciousness still goes on, but there's part of your consciousness that would feel trapped in the fish for the remainder of that fish lifetime, sort of thing. I don't know. It's hard to explain. That's why eating meat and stuff like that is sort of an arrangement, because we acknowledge that we have to be thankful for our meals and be grateful for the chicken or fish or whatever. It's okay to eat the animal. I don't profess to eat meat, but what I'm saying is you should be open to the idea that you're interacting with the thought form. So you're sort of introducing, like, you should be of the approach like more like welcome to my body thought forms from elsewhere. Like, think of your body as like an airport, and like all these like international like meals are coming into your body, and like they're like, oh yeah, I'm here for a stay. So it's like, please fasten your seatbelts. Please enjoy your stay on flight Wayne Hilborn. Today we're going to be going for a bike ride on the electric bike, and we're going to cruise the park systems and blah 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 blah. And tomorrow we're going to go roller skating, and then whatever, back to work or whatever. So do whatever. Like, just imagine your life is fun and happy and safe, but don't take yourself so seriously. Have fun, and if someone dies, they're safe. It was sad that they suffered if they suffered, but we choose our exit point. If we're suffering, then we chose to do that to learn some sort of empathy or something that we might have missed in a former. Like, we choose lessons for ourselves in a way based on what we're going to evolve into. Like, to evolve past humanhood, you need to get to a certain understanding, and you're not going to get there as a first-time human without like a lot of work or whatever. You'd have to, first of all, a first-time human doesn't have to be stuck to that level if they understood what I taught in. We can age our resonance with expectations if the past can change. that would be logical and reasonable. Changing the past sounds sort of weird if we think that there is a past. And that's a faux pas. There is no past. There's no past, so why can't we change it? Why can't the past change as much as the future if the future is not real and the past is not real? If nothing is real. But because we experience events with what we perceive of as others, we sort of add a concreteness to those events. So like, as long as the consensus of like who won the football match agrees, then those statistics will probably be like in our like journals for like hundreds of thousands of years if mankind can keep journals that long. People talk about Akashic records, set stuff like that to do with like Edgar Cayce and stuff like that, where he needed to view things in a booklet form. So we talk about like Akashic records as a library. However, in a universe void of time, what would be the purpose of a book of what would be the purpose of a book of your life? Like, what would be the purpose of it? If your life is occurring simultaneously to then why would we have any kind of memory or record? Why would we need a written record of your life? However, I'm saying that metaphorically, if you choose to look at your life in a book format, that is available to you. Because you've learned to see that over thousands of lifetimes, or our foreverness. You have... Earth is meant to teach us stuff, so you have to follow it through. You have to constantly ask yourself what lessons you're being taught by various circumstances. Why are you in that mess? What happened to the universe to put you in that situation? Can you distract from the worry that a loved one's going to perish? Because that worry is doing them no good. The worrying grandmother that expects her grandchildren to lie, that expects her grandchildren are lying in the ditch bleeding every time they're 10 minutes late for supper, is putting that visualization out there. And it's building. It's an energy that's building, and it's happening simultaneously to when? Now. Every event is simultaneous to now. So if you're putting a weight of thought into a simultaneous event with every thought. So what do you want to add weight to? You want to add weight to worry? Or you want to add weight to your daydreams? Energy follows all thoughts. Repetition is the most obvious hack to focus. So mote it be. I'm Wayne Hilborn. I understand reality and consciousness. These theories are my own. I am the only one that teaches what I teach. I do not advocate any living teacher today. Be blessed.
Think about one, because one of the deepest insights which occurred in the 30s and 40s, physicists called Stuckelberg and then Feynman, was that what is an anti-electron? What is an antiparticle? An anti-electron has the same charge as an electron. Why? Because it's actually the same particle. The only difference is that it's going backwards in time. Okay? And so this was a very profound principle. Feynman actually built his whole machinery for particle physics on that insight. And so from that point of view...
And that's a wrap, folks. I hope I broadened your horizons today. As a modern Canadian magician, I've got a knack for tuning into the universe and understanding the intricacies of reality. From healing to life coaching and fitness instruction, I'm your go-to guy for a holistic approach to well-being. If today's topic struck a chord with you, send some positive vibes out in the universe And while I don't ask for personal donations, your generosity could help elevate the quality of my future content and publications. Whether through Patreon, direct support, or local collaborations, your contributions are greatly appreciated. Remember, folks, it's all about that water deficit. Dry fasting holds the key to shedding those pesky pounds, and I'm here to debunk the myth that exercise is the be-all and end-all for our weight loss. Forget about calorie counting. It's all about tapping into that 7% water in our fat cells and saying goodbye to them forever. And let's not forget the other nugget of wisdom I bring to the table. The nature of memory is a series of simultaneous events. No brain required to store those precious moments, folks. You'll be conscious forever. If you're hungry for more of what I have to offer, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for future updates. Wishing blessings upon you all, and remember, in a universe governed by the mind, worry is the only true evil. Stay positive, stay blessed, and keep spreading the love.